everybody. So we're starting Ohio, which is in the afternoon already. But
I know.
Pleasant morning. It's morning somewhere. Pleasant morning to everybody, wherever that is.
Probably morning when they're seeing this.
True. Which, by the way, before we segue into this video, we appreciate the people who sort of watch these at the oddest hours in the morning. We're up at those hours too, so we see you, we love you, you're awesome. But this new series is just basically kind of our recommendation series.
Yeah, we've been getting requests to do a couple of recommendations.
And we thought, let's just do all of it. And
we'll do our own spin on it.
We'll do our own spin on it. And so this is for episode 1 of Macky and Alexa Recommend, and this is part 1 of the anime recommendations.
Yep.
So, in which
anime and manga.
Yes, anime and manga, in which we sort of throw out the anime and manga that sort of matter to us. Now we're not setting ourselves up as any kind of like experts who have, we're not those
specifically. I'm not.
Kind of deeply read and widely watched type of otakus. But what we do know and love, we love very, very well. And enough to know that, hey, I may be the only one who likes this, but there might be some other folks who like it. Or you know what, I like this and I'm pretty sure the known universe would like it. Or if anybody liked this book, and so that's pretty much what that is. So for today, we are gonna sort of narrow it down to the many types of anime and manga out there to contemporary manga and contemporary anime and contemporary manga and anime that we don't know what the supernatural element is because they never explain it, because apparently that kind of exposition is unnecessary for some folks who write these things. So we presume it's probably magic because it's definitely not science either. And so we're gonna start with our contemporary manga and anime. So Lex, you have quite a few, I think. So
manga or anime?
Let's start with the manga first.
Okay. In terms of manga, I actually haven't read as much contemporary manga, but I do have a couple of recommendations. So for the first one I want to talk about is an unfinished series that I am still hopeful will be continued one day, and it's a series called Nana by Ayazawa. The person who introduced that to me is Kristen from Super Space Chick. It's a contemporary manga that basically tackles the lives of these two girls who are both named Nana, and they end up becoming roommates at some point in the series. And it's just the ins and outs of their lives. And they get involved in the music industry because one of the Nanas is in a band. And that is actually my favorite aspect of it, just seeing the whole like band life and everything like that. It's a really, really compelling series, and I just flew through all 21 volumes that are out. And then the 21st volume ends, and I'm lucky that I was prepared by Kristen for the fact that it ends and you don't get anything else after that.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately for her, she literally read it and she had no idea that that was going to be the end for a while. There's rumors that she's going to start picking that one up again, so maybe we're going to see some new volumes, and I will happily reread the rest of the series if that happens. But at this point, it ends on a very cliffhanger-y type scenario. Here's the thing, even though it ends like that, it's still so worth checking out and reading. It's just so enjoyable. You really get to know all these characters, not just the two Nanas, like everyone in their lives, and it's so interesting because everyone has their own story, and I find that so, so compelling. But the same author actually has another series. It's called Paradise Kiss, and it's also by Ayazawa. This one is actually finished. It's only 3 parts. You can get them in separate volumes too, but this is like a condensed, like 3-part version of it. And it's basically about this very ordinary student who doesn't really know what she wants to do with her future. And so she's just following the typical path until she kind of runs into these folks who are from a fashion art school, and they want her to be the model for their show. And so she kind of gets involved in their wonderful and wacky lives. And it's also just as fascinating as Nana. I think the best part, and I think the thing that Ayazawa is really good at, is characters, because again, it's really the characters that make me care about this particular story. Like, I think fashion is great and fun, and I'm also interested in it, but not nearly as much as, would have been not nearly enough to make it the main draw of this story for me. So I was kind of like, we'll see how I feel about it. And then I read the first volume and I was really angry that I didn't have the rest of it. Very compelling, very good. It's also illustrated really well, and it has a lot of like cute fashion in it for sure, which is very, very fun.
So my contemporary recommendation is also an unfinished work. It's called Glass Mask, and it is from the glorious era of the 70s, which is when it started. No news on whether it's going to be finished yet, but it centers on a young girl, Maya Kitajima, she's this lovely tiny little slip of a thing. She's like, what, I want to say 11, 10 when the story starts out. And she really has this preternatural ability to be a great actress. And true to Japanese, you know, a manga storytelling format, whenever she begins to act anything out, the entire like landscape changes, and it's like she brings the entire audience into her. So if she's playing like the Snow Queen, you'll see like snow creep into the audience, or if she's playing the Summer Goddess, there's gonna be like, you know, breezes blowing through the audience and the smell of wafting like pine leaves or whatever it is. So it's that kind of over-the-top imagery that is in no way any form of magical realism. It's just their kind of visual way to depict the intensity of the scene. And what I really love about it is, well, it's also over the top with the I want to
theater, darling. It's
no. But see, no, this is not theater. This is soap opera, telenovela levels over the top stuff where like people die and like, you know, whatever. And so, and it centers on her journey being an actress, set in a world where the greatest actress that ever lived was said to have played the Crimson Goddess in a play, I forget what it was called, about a man who falls in love with the goddess, who is actually a plum tree. And so nobody has ever restaged that play ever since. And she lives in a world post that thing where they're looking for the hottest new actress, they're whatever. But then the actress who played said Crimson Goddess actually runs a school, and she ends up discovering like that school, and they take her in. And so when people, and she's the only one who has the rights to it, the rights to that play, and she doesn't want to give it away until a new actress can be found to play the Crimson Goddess. And so far Maya is in the running for it, along with another really big, like she's a huge actress, her rival, also a young girl, who for whatever reason is always outclassed by Maya's natural ability. It's so classic 70s. It's basically every shonen anime trope where there's like the unsuspecting main character and the genius, but then the genius always, you know, gets trunked by the main character, but in shoujo format, because there's like love stories and nobody fights each other. So I highly recommend that. It's gotten far enough for me to go, do my ship sail? Do my ship sail? And then I know the answer, and then we're fine. I still recommend it because I just love it. I just love it so much, and it's got this, it's so well written, and I really do hope that they finish it someday. We now move on to the contemporary anime recommendations. So I only just have the one, so maybe you should. Well, you have just the one too. So
don't I just have one?
Yeah, just have the
okay.
one. So,
I thought so
thanks to Super Space Chick for this recommendation. What do you recently love for contemporary anime?
I recently binge watched this newish anime series called Wotakoi, which is Wotakoi, Love is Hard for an Otaku, is basically the entire title. Love is hard for an otaku.
That's true for all people, but yes, otakus in particular.
And it's essentially about this woman who is working at an office, and she's trying very hard to hide the fact that she's an otaku. Instead, she finds out that three of her coworkers are actually also otaku, but different kinds. She's, I think she's a manga one, and then her coworker cosplays. The other one likes to read manga as well, and then the last one is a gamer otaku. And it's just the story of like what their lives are like after they meet, and they sort of like
out each other.
Oh, I forgot to mention, the gamer otaku is actually someone she knows from her past life. He's the one who outs her as an otaku. And it's just cute because their relationships develop. You sort of get to see all these like hints of their otaku lives, which is kind of amazing. And it's so much fun. Like, I just enjoyed watching it so much, both because I could relate to the characters, obviously, but also because like they did a really good job of like giving each character their own thing and also making them feel like very different personalities. Plus, I just love seeing all the friendships build up, all the relationships build up, and it's just so much fun. I cannot wait for the rest of it. I hope they do more seasons of it. I know there's a manga and it's up to 2 volumes now, and the 3rd one is coming out fairly soon, so I will also be getting my hands on that. But if you're looking for something that's like a bit short and like cute and just very, it's almost slice of life, except that it's got that fangirl.
It's slice of otaku life, and it's not a touch, it's a walloping huge dollop.
Fine, okay.
That's not even a thing, but there's no way to describe it. I have otaku friends, so when I see the arguments and it's basically, think of what everyone would do. Think of everyone's basic shenanigans, but apply that to a bunch of otakus. So the bribery, the arguments, the illusions, even the definitions of what would be sweet or what would be lovely, but for a complete fanboy or fangirl, it's just so refreshing. I just like, I'm like, oh my god, I've heard my friends argue in the exact same way.
It's so enjoyable. It's actually on Amazon Prime, so you can watch it there. I'd highly recommend that. Again, that's all credit goes to Kristen. She actually is also the one who recommended Parkes, so you know. Basically, this video is going to turn into Kristen told me to watch this, so.
Or Macky told
me to watch this, so.
Well, in any case, my anime recommendation is this lovely gem called Whisper of the Heart.
Oh, that one's very good.
So that was this I stumbled upon this during my Studio Ghibli phase as a kid.
Out of it.
I never left. But well, no, I am out of the phase where I watch all of it all the time, like every week. Like that's done. I've done enough weeks of that as a young person. And Whisper of the Heart is a story of a young girl who was just kind of dabbling with writing. She likes to translate English songs into Japanese, and recently tried doing John Denver's Country Road, which is apparently huge in Japan. I didn't know, but they love that particular John Denver song, and she does, until this annoying boy finds her lyrics tucked away in a book that she left behind.
Yeah.
So when she doubles back to find it, he's just like, you could work on these lyrics. And she's like, how dare he criticize my work? He doesn't even know me. I only show these to friends. So she all got all very defensive and stuff like that. She hates him. And
she does.
And she wishes so bad that she would finally, instead of that annoying boy, meet the one other boy that seems to have checked out every library book that she's borrowed. Now, for me, at that moment, I'm like, what? So that's the premise. That's the premise. Between her friends who think her lyrics are cool, and that annoying boy who just ruined her life out of nowhere and touched on a very sensitive, personal kind of work, and the one boy she's been sort of dreaming about because she notices out of the blue that all of the library books she borrowed has his name on it, Amasawa Seiji. At that moment, I died watching it as like alone, because that's what I was when I was young. And then when we were watching it, I was just like watching the screen, and I'm looking at her lecture, and I'm just like, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. And then she just like jerks it, and I'm just like, aha, got her. She's dead now. There's no way she's gonna not finish this.
The sheer amount of times I've died and been resurrected because of anime or manga is really quite a number. And
this in particular is, it will always be my favorite. Ironically, it's not even written by Hayao Miyazaki. It was actually based off of a different manga written by somebody else, but the Studio Ghibli was like, this is beautiful, can we make, can we animate this? And they did, and I highly recommend it, though. It's beautiful. Alrighty, now we move on to the next category, which is unexplained phenomenon, probably magic. That's not a real category, but
we're making it.
But we're making it up because there really are some, pieces of work that are, well, pieces of work, because nobody explains anything. They're like, just accept that it's this. We won't tell you how it scientifically came to be. We won't explain to you if there's any magic behind it. It's just, this is how it is. That's not the point. The characters are. So I'm just like, all right, fine. In which case, let's start with your stuff.
I have two that I want to recommend from manga under this category. So first we're going to talk about Fruits Basket, which I have talked about way too many times on this channel. If you guys haven't already heard from the past videos I've done, this is essentially about a girl named Toru who is living in a tent on this piece of land because she's essentially an orphan now. And she can't live with her grandfather because they're reconstructing the house or something like that. And she stumbles across two members of the Soma family who, take her in, and then she ends up living with them in their house. And she learns that this family is cursed or blessed, I'm not sure which one.
They never explained, did they?
With the fact that 12 of the members of that family, 13 actually, of the members of that family are afflicted with this thing where if they are hugged by a member of the opposite sex, they turn into an animal of the Chinese zodiac. Again, ridiculous premise. And I thought, like, at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like, light, fluffy, cute. Yeah, no, I was like at the 5th volume, and I was literally screaming at Manga. I'm like, I did not sign up to be emotionally damaged by this series, in a good way. It's surprisingly dark. Like, it's weirdly dark.
It's totally,
by the end of it. And I was like telling him, like,
it's as dark as the supernatural element is absurd. Like this is how absurd it is that you hug somebody and they turn into a rat. this is how dark the story is.
I was like, I was not emotionally prepared for it, but I also think that heightened my experience of it, which made it so much more fun for me. But I think the driving force behind why I enjoyed this story so much is because I came to love so many of the characters so much. Again, I am drawn to stories that are very character driven, and this is one of them, and I think that it's very well done. It's a complete series, so you actually don't have to wait to find out how it ends.
Oh, thank God.
If you watch the anime, it's gonna cut off like around the second volume of this series. There are 12 of these collector edition volumes, so I would actually highly recommend reading the manga first and like reading all of it so you know everything about all the Soma members and like what's going on and what actually happens. It ends on such a satisfying note and so good. It's very enjoyable, and you know, you just have to live and let live when it comes to this whole like hug someone and they turn to a mouse or a rat, hug someone they turn to, I mean really, it makes for some very, very interesting situations in this, let me tell you. But I really enjoyed it and I pretty much blasted through it. They're not short either, they're pretty damn long, but I blasted through the entire series and would highly recommend it. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more, I guess, how do I say this now? It's like, it'll probably be easier for you to get into if you've never read a manga before. I would actually recommend checking out Orange by Ichigo Takano. The entire premise is basically there's this group of high school friends and they receive letters from themselves in the future that tell them they have to help their other friend who has like a terrible fate, and the story like follows that entire like what they're gonna do and how they're gonna do it, and it shows the characters and their developing relationships. You never get an explanation for how the hell they got the letters, never. But that's not the point. The point of the story is to just watch and see how like you being a part of someone's life or being part of all these people's lives affects what happens to them. And I think that's such a very poignant thing to be following. Plus, the entire group of friends in the series is just adorable. Like, I enjoy it so much. There are only 2 volumes of this one. They're kind of big, but you will fly through them because you will be dying to know how everything turns out. And then there's also this spin-off volume that's about one of the other characters who's more secondary in this series. So good. Like, I really enjoyed it. Like, I flew through this. This is one of like the earliest manga I read, I guess, like when I started picking them up again, and I absolutely loved it. I always recommend it to anyone who's asking for like a manga recommendation if they want to try getting into manga. This is definitely one you should check out.
Awesome. So I don't have any manga that have that kind of unexplained, or it's probably magic but they didn't really bother to embellish type thing. So we're gonna jump straight into anime, and I am going to talk about Anohana, the flower that bloomed that summer. I want to say it's not magic, it's supernatural, it's paranormal. It starts almost kind of, but no, nobody explains it. There's no explanation.
Like, you never know.
You just have to accept that this random you know, he's this close to officially dropping out of school. He has literally not been there for about a couple of semesters or whatever.
I think it was, yeah, it was a semester or something.
Or something. And he's just living at home, gaming, like, and out of nowhere, the ghost of his childhood friend shows up at his house. Magnificently grown up to whatever his age was. Last time he'd seen this girl, obviously, before she had passed, she was tiny. And even that is shrouded in a little bit of mystery. So I do appreciate the exposition of this thing, because it's different pieces of the puzzle. It's like, you know that she died. It becomes pretty obvious kind of in the start. But the conditions of what that was, what happened to the rest of the group of friends who were sort of still around them, and how the death of that one young girl, Menma, they call her. It's 13 episodes, very, very quick. Yeah. It's a very quick death for anybody who wants to die of feels. Because at the end of the day, it's a story of how these childhood friends who were devastated by the loss of one of their number find themselves, the best of themselves in each other as they all finally get to move on. Yeah. Because supernaturally, she enters into their lives. And so whatever anybody's hang-ups are dealt with in succession. In ships. Yeah, course she would notice it. I didn't care about the ships at all when I watched it the first time.
Oh,
so
come on.
I
There
didn't
was a
care.
total
I
ship.
did not care. But like I saw the ships and I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? But with Alexa, I was like, oh my god! And she was just like screaming the whole time. So if you like ships, if you love childhood friendships, if you
like stories that explore character relationships.
Yeah,
character
growth, and all of these things. This is it's on Crunchyroll.
Yes.
So I suggest Anohana.
That was painful.
That was
very
extremely
painful. I had a massive headache after.
That's true though, because it hurt that much. And that's why we want to end this entire video of semi-unexplained things with our favorite. There you go. Your Name. Because they really didn't explain it too much.
They don't explain like how it ever happened
and what did happen. For those of you who haven't been following us in our incredible fandom of Your Name, the story starts out when two completely random strangers who have no idea who
never
the
met
other
each
are,
other.
never met, never whatever, end up in each other's bodies for a successive
They wake up
number of,
and they're like,
they wake up and it's like, I'm suddenly in this random stranger's body, and shenanigans ensue because they don't know who the other person is when they realize that they've sort of been switching back. Like, so imagine me waking up in Alexa's body somewhere and realizing that she's been waking up in mine. So to make that connection, they end up leaving messages for each other and sort of get to know each other.
But then one day it stops.
But then one day it stops out of nowhere, and which prompts him to go on a journey to find out whatever happened to Mitsuha because she hasn't been returning his calls and all of that stuff.
Or they haven't been switching. So.
And they haven't, yeah. And so he tried calling. There's no way. And so they never really fully explained it, but the whole, and I'm wearing the shirt, by the way, for Your Name. Their journey to find each other really, I think, is the center of this entire thing. We're such trash for this.
Obviously.
We're such trash for this story.
The movie is incredible. It is one of the most beautifully animated films I've ever
stunning.
seen.
Visually stunning.
It also has an incredible soundtrack. Like,
oh yeah, no. If any of you who like Japanese, like J-rock or J-pop, this is top tier stuff.
Yeah,
like,
not even just that. Even the instrumentals are flipping amazing.
It's amazing. So in fact, if you don't remember anything at all from this entire recommendation,
this is all you need.
This is all that you had to need, because it's sort of in the world today where anime is familiar and it isn't scoffed at anymore the way it was like even 15 years ago by the known world. This is the one of the most accessible stories out there for anybody who doesn't even like anime. Would find that this is great.
You can also check out the manga. It is 3 volumes. I'm pretty sure it finishes in the 3rd volume.
And it's surprisingly just as good as the.
And it's just as good. The best part about it is that you have more time to look at the details of things because you have the panels, and
as opposed to here, you're gonna have to freeze frame and whatever. So
it's
for this story to survive beautifully on manga, and at the same time beautifully in animation is pretty rare. In which case, we're just about done wrapping up this contemporary unexplained but probably magic genres. In the comments if you want to see other recommendations of different kinds of genres, or if you have recommendations.
That would be so great.
Like, we would like to know, like, what other animes out there where they're like, here's the magical thing that happens.
I usually just rely on Kristen and Macky to be like.
That's true though. So if you guys have stuff that you like that you've read in manga format, or you've watched, we'd like to hear that. And if you'd like to have other recommendations of different genres,
definitely let us know. Even book genres too. We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, because this is the newly minted Macky and Alexa recommends. So thank you for watching episode 1 of the anime part 1.
It's gonna be part like 1 until like whatever, because because lately, all I have been doing is not reading and watching anime, because that is apparently where my mind is. Yeah, otaku life is a real thing now for her. I'm so happy. Tell you, my daily routine is literally to be like, oh, I'm gonna like get ready to sleep, blah, blah, blah. And for like an hour and a half, I'll just watch anime. I could be doing other things, but no. It's a beautiful thing, actually. So, there. Okay, so thank you so much, and we will see you guys soon.